believe it or not, my first instinct when I'm going to do something new is actually to tell my parents about it, or Kai, or maybe even Pat. Right? And the question is, why do I do that? And it's because even at my age, I'm still looking for approval. Is what I'm about to do making sense? Right? Are they going to say something that makes me go, ooh, maybe this is a bad idea? I'm also looking for some acceptance, right? Like, I want to make sure that nothing I'm going to do is going to cause a rift between myself and my family, right? Because I love those relationships. I want to make sure that those relationships stay as perfect, as pristine as I can keep them. And I also want confirmation that it looks like something I could manage. So I want to know that they think I could succeed at whatever it is that I have on the agenda that I'm planning to be trying in the next, little while. In a nutshell, you could say that I'm looking for support. We like to know that the people around us, they understand what it is that we're trying to accomplish, and they understand our struggles, that they understand that we are trying to make life better for ourselves. And so whenever I'm going into these new things, I'm always trying to make my life better, and maybe even the lives of the people around me. And so I'm going to talk this through, or what I want to talk it through with somebody else. Does this other person understand that at that moment, let's say if I'm actually trying to solve a weight issue, that I actually feel different than people who are at a healthy weight? Because I'm looking at those people at a healthy weight, I'm looking at myself, and first of all, they seem to eat what they want. I can't seem to be able to do that. At least I remember when I was struggling with my weight, just not understanding why it looked like I was eating similar things to what everybody else was eating. My weight kept rising. So now what ends up happening is, because my weight is rising, now I can't wear cute outfits, and basically my confidence is on a decline. My self-esteem is on a decline. Like, I'm not feeling good about myself. Do people who are trying to support me understand that? Do they understand that my health is a concern? This constant fear that I might become diabetic, or my fear of cancer, because cancer is rampant in my family. Fear of even having a heart attack, right? When you carry more weight on you, right? All these medical conditions, strokes, high blood pressure, all these medical conditions that I'm living day to day, not really sure at what moment I'm going to learn from my doctor that, oh, okay, now we're adding medication to the story. One thing that I know about medication, living, first of all, in a family with people who were taking medications, but second of all, living in a situation where, because of work, I talk to a lot of people that take medication. Often, the complaint of people taking medication is what? It caused them to gain weight. So here I am trying to, lose weight, and then fearing health issues, because if I get a health issue, I'm not thinking, oh, geez, my health. I'm thinking, wow, that's just going to add more weight. And those were real thoughts that I had. It's okay. Do they understand that I'm tempted to eat foods that I know cause weight gain? And I think this is one of the ones that's the most annoying, maybe, is that maybe you go to a party and, somebody birthday, and I have a big family, so birthday parties happen often. So you go to this party, there's a birthday, there's food on the table, birthday cake and brownies and all these fun things for the kids to eat, and you're tempted. And the worst part is that the other adults are eating them. Now, okay, in fairness, there's thin people in my family and there's overweight people in my family, but the thin people were eating them too, right? So we're in these situations, and then the people around us, well-meaning as they might be, will say things like, like, you could just have one cookie, or just for today, just, it doesn't matter, right? And so you're parents or your spouse or your friends, but just kind of encourage the idea of moderation. But we know, because we've been living this for the longest time, that when I eat a little bit of something, well, next thing you know, I might be eating a lot of that something, and that could go on for days. We're sitting, we're tempted, we're trying not to eat it, we're getting encouraged, oh, you can be like everybody else, don't worry about it. We're getting all these messages that eventually lead to us eating something that we shouldn't eat. My dad, he loved to work out. I didn't. So he would tell me things like, well, you should just go to the gym and work out and do more stuff. And, and he wanted me to work out in the gym because that's what he had done and that's what helped him. And it made a lot of sense because he liked working out. Still does work out to this day, right? I hate the gym. So that kind of advice isn't going to work for me. My mom, she likes to think about it as it doesn't matter, right? She's like, whatever I weigh, I weigh. And for the longest while, she was at a great weight actually. And but she always told me, it doesn't matter. Like, whatever you weigh, right? That didn't work for me either because I couldn't just stop worrying about it, right? I needed to do something. So although my parents, they're both trying to be supportive in their different ways and just giving me the advice that worked for them, because they didn't understand my situation, neither one of them had gained weight at the age that I gained it, right? Because when my weight started to rise, I was in my early 30s. They didn't have that story, right? And so, of course, they didn't understand. So they couldn't offer me the kind of support I needed to stick to eating my keto diet. Now, part 2 of this was they had always eaten normal food to maintain their weight. So even this idea that you're going to change the way you're eating in such a, in their mind, drastic way, again, it didn't make sense to them. So they could not support me the way that I needed support. And we need to think about, how is it that support actually does help us, right? What is support doing that allows us to feel better? A little bit of a plug here. Acknowledgement that what I'm trying to do is hard. When we join things like the Wellness Squad, where we're talking to other people who are in a similar situation, or when we join a running group, if you're trying to, get out and be more active, or even when you join a gym where where people actually talk to you, because not every gym you go to, people talk to you. But if you join a gym where people actually talk to each other, it's an acknowledgement that what we are trying to do is hard because we're all living the same situation. And those who don't struggle with weight, they downplay cravings and chasing because, well, they don't even know what it actually feels like. Right? There are some people that really can eat one cookie, one chocolate bar, granola bar, or even chocolate bar. There are people who can eat one of something. I can honestly tell you, I've never been able to do that. To eat one cookie, in my mind, if I'm having just one, I'd rather have none. They don't understand that mentality because they never lived it, because they never, for whatever reason, were in that situation. And okay. So because they're expecting us to use moderation, there's an expectation that we're going to have enough discipline to avoid overeating when we're around junk food, right? Discipline is a problem because we need to understand that difference between practice and discipline. And I think that most of us, we get it wrong, right? We think that people who succeed use discipline, which is to obey rules, right? So we're kind of pushing people to obey rules to change a bad behavior to a good one. And the consequence is punitive, right? Something bad is going to happen. This is why you should be doing this behavior. And what we don't understand is that by forcing me, so trying to force me, hey, Violet, just take one. It's going to work. You're trying to force me to do something that, first of all, in my brain, I know I do not believe at all. My experience has told me that's never been my story. And so what ends up happening is the part that I know will happen, but they never see because they're not with me the next 5 days while I'm struggling to get back to the place where I'm not eating them at all. What we need to understand is that discipline is really engaging an external locus of control, right? I'm not in the driving seat. Like the outside is telling me what to do and I'm following rules. That's very different than practice. And in this case, I'm using the definition of practice, which is to actually do the application of something that you've learned about. So it could be an idea, a belief, a method. So rather than stay in the world of theoretical, I'm going to take this piece of information that I learned, and then I'm going to translate that over into actually doing it in some kind of practical way. Why is this different? It's because it's like if I'm giving you something that you didn't have before, and because you didn't have it before, you couldn't have used it. So if you look at children, right? Of course, when a child is learning to eat, they take their utensils, their hands, and they put things in their mouth. And then when you give a kid a bowl of cereal or soup, right? That doesn't work. I can't just put the soup in my mouth. I can't just get the milk in my mouth, right? But if I give you a spoon, then all of a sudden you've just given me a piece of information. When there's something liquidy in front of me and I want to get it in, I'm going to put it in using this spoon. And now they need to practice this, right? So they're going to use the information that they have and apply it to be able to drink or to eat things that are liquidy. Theoretically, the kid could just grab the bowl and drink it like how they drink their water or their bottle or whatever. That also would work. But that spoon is new information, right? And it allows them to interact with the soup the way that adults do. But it's new. And so we've just given them data that they will internalize. And now guess what's happening? It's an internal locus of control. I want to eat the soup and I want to get it in my mouth. It's all about wanting something. I want to get it in my mouth, right? Want is so important because it focuses our attention on the good things. But in our society, we are constantly focusing on have to, right? Should, must, like these pushes. So again, external locus of control, pushing people to do something rather than allowing us to want to do it, internal locus of control, right? And I really want us to pause for a second and think about all the things in life that we ever do where we do it no matter what's happening. So the example I'm going to give you is this. Why do you drive the speed limit? I'm going to take a second to think about that. When I ask this question, a lot of the time I'll have people say they drive the speed limit because they want to avoid getting a ticket, right? That's a have to. So, and I will equally though sometimes get a few people who will say, well, I shouldn't say equally, but a smaller number of people will say that they drive the speed limit because they like to stay safe. They like to feel like they're doing what's safer for not only themselves in the car, but safer for the people that they're driving around, right? Because they don't want to hit another car or pedestrian, so they want to stay safe, and that's their reason. So now let's look at these two different reasons. I have to, I don't want to get a ticket, versus I like to be safe. Now, what happens if you are guaranteed the police are not going to be out today? Right? I mean, I know in the US a few years ago, there was a strike for the police and chaos happened, right? There was a bunch of looting and all kinds of illegal activity. And the question is why? Well, if I'm only doing something because I have to, the police will give me a ticket. As soon as I know the police is not going to be around, what speed will I drive? Versus all those people who do it because I want to stay safe, end up still driving the speed limit because that speed limit is about safety. Honest warrior, if we're not thinking about why we do what we do, what's driving our behavior, then we will make this mistake because we try to use discipline. I'm going to force myself to do it And then what happens when the conditions that cause me to force myself to do it no longer exist? So in this example, if I'm forcing myself to eat properly or to avoid the snacks because I'm overweight, what happens when my weight gets to normal? So let's say I'm successful and I force myself and I use discipline and now my weight's normal. What will I do? I'm going to eat the garbage again. Why am I going to eat the garbage again? Well, because I don't have to force myself to not eat it anymore. Do we see the problem? If we do it because we want something, like I want to be healthy, I want to feel good, how does it change, right? So how can we feel support when nobody around us is doing keto? And this is the biggest question that I get a lot. Like, how do we feel support? Well, we can focus on want. And if I'm focused on want, like I just said, right? I want to be pain-free. That was me. I wanted to be pain-free. And keto promised me that. It promised to get those carbohydrates low enough to stop the inflammation problem that I was living. And I had been living that inflammation problem, by the way, for like 23 years. I just didn't know that it was carbohydrates causing my inflammation problem. As soon as I figured that out, well, because I learned about keto, again, a piece of data was given to me and it was said, use this information file and you will solve your problem. I did, right? If you want to be healthy, that's a great way to support yourself, right? You're basing it on want. If you want to solve a metabolic problem, if you want to heal a mental health problem. But what if what you want is to heal the fact that your body is overweight? Is there a way to word that? Right? And here's the thing. Most people say they want to lose weight, but in their head, they're thinking, I don't like how I feel. I don't like what I see in the mirror. I don't want to be fat anymore. So we say out loud, and as a matter of fact, a lot of people say I have to lose weight, by the way. But sometimes when I talk about this, people will start to say, yes, I want to lose weight when they talk to other people, but internally, in my head, if I'm still saying I hate being fat, I hate carrying this extra weight, if I'm saying that, it doesn't matter that to the world you're saying I want to lose weight because that sounds better. You have to want it internally. You have to let it be part of how you actually engage in your world. If you want to lose weight and get healthy, and I honestly want to remind you that if I get healthy, my healthy body will regulate its weight. See, that's the other thing too, right? We get so caught up on trying to look a certain way or to try to not look a certain way that we lose sight of the fact that these foods that we're eating, that's frustrating the heck out of us because we're so tempted and we want it, but we know we shouldn't. And this back and forth that we're constantly if we focused on, I want to be healthy, if we focused on, I want to heal, if we focused on these bigger ideas that are so much more powerful for my long term, well, the positive there is that I would actually allow my body to regulate its weight, because your body is always trying to do what's best for you. Mental health and physical health. So interestingly enough, I just saw a TikTok the other day, and the person was kind of saying that there's too much hairy-fairy, like, oh, you can do it kind of talk, which I do agree. But I feel like he did not understand the fact that the reality is every mechanism that our body has naturally is towards health and safety. The reason that your body so quickly grabs that sugar and puts it in fat storage is because if it didn't, you would pass. The reason that your brain doesn't let you ignore the negative something that somebody said to you is because when we ignore it, it causes us to have negative emotions about ourselves. Your body and brain are always trying to protect you and always trying to make you healthier. Are you letting them? Off topic a little bit. Let's get back on topic. Okay. So now I need to find a way to feel normal eating all the wrong foods, right? Because these are the foods that the medical professionals are telling us cause us to gain weight, right? We should be avoiding fat. We should be avoiding red meat. We should be avoiding basically everything that the other keto doctors, carnivore doctors are telling us is actually healthy. So what do I do? How do I get support in eating keto when everybody in my entourage believes that those are the unhealthy foods, Violet, and those are going to be the reason that you gain weight and possibly become sick? You need to learn how to support yourself, right? When I started this process, Pat was not on board. And so I actually had to ask him to just you don't need to be in it with me. You don't have to, but just don't sabotage me. So we talked about how he could make meals that I could get what I need to get out of it. He was not on board, but obviously I'm going to do whatever I'm going to do anyways, right? Which is the reality for all of us. With the best advice put in front of us, we're going to do what we're going to do. He kind of knew that I was going to do what I was going to do anyways, and agreed to, at least when he was cooking, that he would make stuff in a way that I could get out what I needed to get out. If you don't believe in yourself, no one else is going to believe in you. So it's important for you to set yourself up for success. First of all, by planning for your success. I didn't just jump into doing keto willy-nilly. And I've heard of people doing that, where they just say, oh, keto let me lose 100 pounds. And they're like, oh, great, I'm going to do it. And they just jump right in eating the diet plan of this other person without doing any research, without understanding fully what they're trying to accomplish. And a lot of the time, people who start keto that way do not succeed. Why? Because you don't fully understand what you're supposed to be doing. You don't fully understand if what's on your plate is okay or not okay to eat. You don't understand how much of whatever you're putting on your plate you should be putting on your plate. And so I see a lot of times where people who start from a place of, oh, you're doing that, I'm going to jump on board too, still overeat their carbohydrates. And can I just point out, even though I did a lot of research at the very beginning, I would probably say the first 2 months for sure, I still was overeating my carbohydrates because, well, it took me a few weeks to get a scale, first of all. And then when I did get a scale, it took me a few weeks to click in to weigh the food, put the food in the calculator before you eat it. So I would have all my numbers, but I wouldn't take the time to sit down and put it in the food calculator. I would just write everything down, what I had, eat it, and then put it in. And lo and behold, by the end of my day, I'd be over. You need to know what you're doing. You need to plan for what you're going to do in a way that makes sense so that you can be successful. Now, of course, that also includes planning your meals. Another reason that I struggled at the beginning, because even though the things that I was eating were in line with keto, because I hadn't planned it all, sometimes I would have to wait long periods of time because of like the cooking process. And I feel like, again, you just make mistakes when you don't plan your meals properly. So once I had everything planned out, things started to go much more smoothly. And also, that was another reason I had difficulty. At the very beginning, I did not eat vegetables because in my normal life, I didn't eat vegetables. So I was trying to eat vegetables without really knowing what vegetables I liked. And so it caused a lot of problems, right? Because I didn't know what I was doing. So anyways, wellness where I was choosing the wrong vegetables. I was just doing things that made it difficult for me. The other thing that you need to think about is what you're going to eat when you go out. So whether it's a party, a restaurant, some kind of event. So if I know in advance what I'm going to be doing in those kind of situations, I can make my life a lot easier, right? So how am I taking care of me in these kind of situations? Am I eating before I go and I'm just not eating? Because as I said a few minutes ago, knowing myself, one cookie leads to a bunch. And what if I end up eating something here that I think is okay, but it's not okay? So especially at restaurants, it gets more tricky. Now, eventually you do learn how to choose things at restaurants that fall in line with your plan, but that takes planning. right? So being willing to take care of yourself and make sure that you're okay, make sure that you are doing all the things that help you to stay on your goal. When you talk about your way of eating, are you being affirmative? So internal locus of control, right? I eat keto. Or are you being an external? I try to eat keto. When you say I try to eat keto, what you're saying is that if my world allows me, I eat keto. That is not a recipe for success, right? Because your world often will not allow you. I eat keto because that's what I do. And most days I'm eating carnivore style, right? I haven't had any veg in the last, I'm going to say, maybe 5 days by this point. But people ask me, of course I still say I eat keto because I'm not afraid to eat some broccoli or cabbage or whatever. I'm lazy. I'm going to be honest. I'm lazy. I don't like to cook extra things that I don't need. But you need to think about yourself and you need to support yourself. And then when you've supported yourself enough, it gets easier to start looking at, okay, seeking support from healthy people. So if I'm supporting myself and I have this internal, I'm doing this attitude because I want it, because I know it's going to help me attitude, when I start looking for healthy people to join me in supporting me, right? All of a sudden it becomes more doable. So for example, like Pat at the beginning, if your spouse doesn't support you, right? Like let's say, even if you're trying to do like workouts or whatever, if they don't think that way and they don't want that, they're not going to remind you to go on your workout, and they're not going to remind you that, hey, you said you were eating keto. That was not going to put you over your numbers. They're not going to remind you. And the truth of the matter is, if you're around people who see you eating the wrong food and just be like, yeah, whatever, then even if you momentarily forgot that you changed the way you're doing things, you're just going to keep slipping back into, right? So is it possible that out of habit, I reach for something that I shouldn't be reaching for at the very beginning of this process? Of course, because 2 days ago, I would have eaten that. But if you have people around you who are supporting you and know that you've changed what you're doing, they'll say something, right? I remember my daughter was very active on checking in with Pat and I, like, how is it going? And at the time she was 13 at the time, and she wanted us to be healthier, and she'd remind us that, you know what, if we're making whatever for supper, how are you guys going to do it? And she'd ask us questions. You know what, the people in your life want you to be healthy. And there are going to be some of them that, even if they're not doing what you're doing, are willing to help you to remember that that's what you're doing. If you're not in that situation, I'm encouraging you to find people who are doing what you are doing. Right? Again, wellnesssquad.org. Why? Because if you seek support from healthy people, then they're going to be able to see not only the conversations that things you might be saying that, okay, that's going to point you in the wrong direction, and they're going to be able to help you with mindset. They're going to be able to help you with the struggle because they went through the same, right? And they want it as much as you want it. If I want it, I'm going to do it. And if I'm around people who want it too, then we're going to do it together. I want to give you an analogy because I think I love those. So if you were worried about you're getting married, let's say, and you're like, wow, am I going to be able to be in one relationship for the rest of my life? Like, that's a big commitment, as is keto, right? You're looking at changing the way you eat for the rest of your life. So you're like, oh my goodness, am I going to be able to do this? And you went to seek some counseling. You'd be shocked if you tell the counselor, yeah, I want to be able to fully commit to my marriage, and I'm just looking for ways of thinking of things that is going to help me to be on track. And the counselor said, oh, well, you know what? You can step out on your spouse once in a while. Nobody's perfect. That would shock you. But yet, I'm going to tell you that one of the reasons I made the Wellness Squad is because you'd be surprised how many people that I followed on YouTube trying to just understand and also feel supported. Like, there's other people out there doing what I'm doing. And at some point would come well, it's, I decided to go off for a few days. And if you're not staying on track with your keto eating, you might end up influencing me to not stay on track with my keto eating. So I'm encouraging you, Wellness Warrior, to be wary of groups that advocate cheat meals and days off, because when you cheat on your diet, you're actually cheating on yourself, right? Because it's your health, right? The food that goes in your mouth determines how healthy you are going to be. So I don't think it's a good idea. It's never a good idea to cheat on anybody, myself, my spouse, that's just not a good idea. And I also feel like sometimes, so I was watching some channels where the person didn't start from a place of being overweight. It could have been, I watched a few bodybuilders at one point in time. So I watched a lot of different kind of people because I like getting variety. And some of the people that would cheat, and then they would be like back to their normal, like the next day, according to them. But we end up overeating carbs for several days when we're coming from the world of having been an overweight person. Now, I will say that if you don't end up overeating carbs, you still run the risk, depending on like how often we do these cheats, of kicking myself out of ketosis and not getting back in time before my next cheat happens, because some of these people were cheating every Saturday. Well, if I have insulin resistance, it can take, I think it's 3 to 7 days to get into ketosis. Well, if I have insulin resistance and then I'm cheating every week, and I notice that I'm on a stall, or maybe even, heaven forbid, putting weight back on, it could be because I got kicked out of ketosis and then I'm doing these weekly cheats and then I'm never getting back in. And so I feel like it's important for us to be supported by the right kind of people. And I mean, what I mean is people who are trying to be healthy and not just trying to run away from being fat, right? It's different. I know for myself, whenever I accidentally go over my carb count, because trust me, I don't do it on purpose, but in my history, it's happened a few times. The pain that resumed. So did I gain weight? No, because I wasn't over for several days, but I had pain. So what is that telling me? It's telling me that even though I didn't gain weight, there was a negative that happened inside of my body. And that negative matters. I pay attention to that negative because it's telling me that what I'm trying to achieve, when I eat the wrong food, I'm not achieving. So ultimately, if people are in your circle and they're encouraging you to occasionally eat foods that cause you to be overweight in the first place, like so those poor quality foods, processed foods, keto treats, fat bombs, all these kind of sweet tasting things that are going to cause me to chase, if they're encouraging you to eat those things, it might be a sign that you are in an unhealthy group. Right? Because a healthy group is a space where you can talk about your struggles and receive understanding. A place where we can help each other to eat healthy all the time, right? Because you want to enjoy eating healthy food so that it's easier to eat healthy food, so that my body can actually get healthy and then I can actually enjoy my life. And if you can't get this in your house, that's unfortunate. But if you can get it in your house, that's amazing, because the people who are in your house obviously are the people that care about you the most. So I do think that eventually, when we see the people around us see us doing well, eventually they see that our health is improving, they see that our weight is regulating, and they get on board, right? Like Pat eventually got on board with eating, not only supporting me, but he himself eating healthy keto after he saw that my weight actually regulated. And in 5 months, I was able to lose. And it's actually, I didn't even realize it's 5 months almost to the day that I was able to lose more than 70 pounds and keep it off, right? Because I did that more than, like, how many years ago? 5.5 years ago at this point? Or 5 years ago? Whatever the date. I don't even know the numbers. But I've kept it off all this time. It's not because of discipline. I'm not afraid of a repercussion. That's not why I eat this way. I eat this way because I understand this now. Like, I am the kind of person that I always do what's best for me, right? My parents can attest to that, because even if it's not what they want me to do, I was doing what was best for me. Now, my parents have been very supportive since seeing the dramatic weight loss. Actually, my dad has even modified his eating habits, and I would probably classify him as low carb now. My friends, when I'm going to go see them, we kind of talk about like what the menu might be if I'm going to go for a meal. And if they can make a safe meal for me, fine. If they can't, I don't mind eating beforehand and arriving either at supper and not eating, or arriving after supper. Doesn't matter to me either way. I don't care. What would I have done if I didn't get the support from my family, my friends at the beginning? What would I have done? Well, I would have done what I did, right? Because at the very, very, very beginning, Pat did not agree. He was like, you have to go to a nutritionist, and you need to get supervision, and you need to eat what they tell you. And he was telling me all this stuff. And it's like, yeah, I tried that, right? I might not have actually gone to a nutritionist, but I tried following the Canada Food Guide. And this is where I ended up. And the research that I had done at that point said, no, the carbohydrates in anything that a nutritionist will suggest to me is going to be a bad idea. So I started the journey, and I ate what made sense to me, because I was the person who was suffering, right? I was the person who had an inflamed hip and I couldn't barely walk. It was me, not him. I initially decided to support myself, right? And I also went online and began to share my experience to meet all of you, because that's another source of support. Because like, you might not want the attention of doing this and being like the person talking to the camera. And that's again why I created the Wellness Squad. But you could join the conversations that we have. Like people are putting comments in right now, and I encourage anybody who has questions to put those comments in so I can answer them after I finish talking about this. At the Wellness Squad, when we're like away from YouTube, you actually have the opportunity to have even more conversations with people that are doing what you're doing, right? And you don't have to be center of attention. When we're supported, we're able to do hard things, right? Because weight loss is hard. And it's hard because it means changing the way that you've been eating for years. It means getting over carb addiction. It means learning a new lifestyle and actually, mourning the end of eating fun foods. These are all very difficult things. So I want to help you enjoy eating healthy food. Like I said before, I want you to have that healthy body and just like love living in the body that you're in. And that means your body needs a chance to get healthy, right? It needs a chance to get its weight regulated. We need to give it that space. And that way you're going to feel good, right? So I do want you to join the squad. And there's also a video that I linked in the description about the emotional aspects of sticking to your keto diet that I think you should watch after this video. I'm also going to link it in the link above.